Hey, what's going on, guys? On today's project, I'm going to show you how I built this cornhole board, and bear with me for these smaller kind of Mickey Mouse projects on the channel. The reason I'm doing these small ones is because I have a lot bigger projects in the works. For example, I'm building this modern shed that you're seeing right now, and I'm also in the process of renovating my basement. So until then, bear with me for the small stuff, but let me show you how I built it. What's going on, guys? So to build these cornhole boards, you're gonna need a piece of 3/4 inch plywood and mark out a 4 foot long by 2 foot wide segment. This is a dimension for all cornhole boards, and try to be a little bit smoother than I was when you cut that out. So once you have both of your 4 foot by 2 foot face frames cut out, go ahead and sand down any rough edges with 120 grit sandpaper. Now I decided to do an American flag theme kind of art on the front. You can do whatever you want, but if you choose to do this method, I just use some painter's tape and then spray paint. And then when I remove the painter's tape, obviously you're left with the flag, and then I use a stencil to get the stars. So at this point, build your frame out of 2x4s. You're gonna need 2 longer 39-inch segments and then 2 shorter 24-inch segments. And then when you put everything together, it'll be a 4 foot by 2 foot frame. To attach the frame together, I used a countersink bit. And what this will do is ensure that my screws do not protrude out of the wood and cause any issues. So I used additional wood glue just because it's an end grain connection to make sure that everything was strong, it was gonna last a while. And then I screwed everything together. Obviously, flip it over and do the same thing on the other side, applying your wood glue and then drilling your countersinks again on both sides just to make sure that you have no screws sticking out. And after the frame was fully assembled, I took some wood filler to fill in any of the screw holes. Now, in order to attach my plywood face frame to the actual 2x4 frame, I used a pocket hole jig. And what this will do is allow me to screw up through the 2x4 frame and basically pull the plywood down into the frame. And if I use that in combination with wood glue, it should be a very strong hold. Depending on the length of your pocket hole screws, you'll need to adjust the jig such that your screws do not go any further than the thickness of the plywood. So for 3/4 inch plywood, you want to make sure that your screws only go about a 1/2 inch into the plywood to make sure nothing is protruding out the other side. And then drill your pocket holes all the way around the perimeter and apply wood glue before attaching the face. Then take your pocket screws and attach everything together. And here I am drilling the pocket holes for the second board and using wood glue to attach the face frame before screwing in my pocket screws to attach everything together. To drill your center hole for the cornhole board, you're going to measure 12 inches from the side and then 9 inches down from the top. This is going to give you the exact center point. And then what I used was a 6-inch diameter hole saw bit to make that drill hole. Now at this point, I took the boards outside and I sanded everything down to give my boards kind of a weathered look. And then you're gonna go ahead and sand down the inside of your hole to make sure there's no rough edges. So at this point, I built the cornhole legs out of 2x4s. I marked around 12.5 inches and I cut 4 2x4 legs. And then I used a roll of tape to establish the opening radius so that it doesn't get hung up when you attach it to the board. To cut off that radius, I just used a jigsaw, and then I sanded everything down just to make sure there were no crazy jagged edges. But I did this for all 4 and then sanded it down outside. So I'm going to be attaching my legs to the board using a 3/8 inch lag bolt. So I drilled 1/2 inch holes down the center there, and I did that for all 4. Now to attach the legs to the actual frame, what I did was I used a very small spacer at the bottom and then a spacer on the back just to give myself enough room so the leg would open up without hitting anything. And then here I am doing just a dry fit with that 3/8 inch lag bolt. I did the same thing on the other side using that spacer on the bottom and the spacer on the back just to make sure that I had the necessary clearances. So here I am doing a quick dry fit with the 3/8 inch bolt, and then what I did is I stood the table up on a table, and then I measured 12 inches down, and then I marked on the table where the angle was that would make it sit flat, and then simply cut that off with my chop saw. And I did this for both boards, and I didn't get too crazy precise with measurements. I really just, sighted it by eye and made sure the angle was right by trial and error. But then I took my 3/8 inch lag bolt, put a washer on the other end, and then tightened it down with a wing nut. And the last thing I did on this project is I drilled 2 holes on the side and fed some rope through it and then just tied a knot so it wouldn't come through so that I have a nice carrying handle. Let's take a look at the final result. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.